Greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight is March 4th, 2025, session 18 of our course of African philosophy, uh, officers training for UNIA-ACL Division 421 here in Atlanta. We'll be going over questions from lesson 17 titled Communism and doing a reading for lesson 18 titled Commercial and Industrial Transactions. I am Brother John Hargrove, Service President for Division 421 here in Atlanta. So as always, please come off mute and we will recite our pledge. Within the armed forces for the United States from also claim that the principles of diversity would please repeat after me. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection.
I commit my mind, body, and spirit
To the protection, defense, and security.
To the protection,
defense, and security.
Of the red, black, and green.
Of the red, black, and green.
Black, and green.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa.
I dedicate my life
to the redemption of Mother Africa.
And the liberation of her scattered black children.
And the liberation of her scattered black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
I accept for myself and my descendants.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
The teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled.
And I promise that our children will be instilled
with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
With the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle
in order that the cause of our struggle
will neither falter nor fail.
Will neither falter nor fail.
Until all black people are free and united.
Until all black people
are free and united.
Through one God.
Through one God.
One aim.
One aim.
One destiny.
One destiny.
Race first, family.
Race first, family.
Okay. Any questions or comments, concerns before we jump into tonight's lesson? Not many questions tonight. We are a little bit behind. If you look at the curriculum, we should be in the final month of this course at this point, so we're winding down. And I'll try to bring a little more detail with the last lessons, but last month. So if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. First question. What is communism and what is the desire of communism, according to the course of African philosophy?
Communism is a white man's creation.
White man's creation.
To solve his own political and economic problems.
Yes, sir. Brother James, you want to add anything? You had anything different?
That's what I was going to say, basically. It wasn't made for us. It was just made for them.
Pretty much.
But they flipped.
White man's creation to solve his own political and economic problems. White working class over the capitalistic class of the race is the intentions or the desires to empower the white working class over the capitalistic class of the race. Questions, comments so far? The Google definition for communism is defined as a political theory advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. That's the Google definition, but we should know Mr. Garvey's definition primarily.
So the comment is that we, as Black people, must create our own system to solve our own political and economic problems.
Yes, and one thing I forgot to mention from reviewing this over the years is where this lesson occurs. So we've just read propaganda last week, and now we're reading communism. But when you look at the lesson on communism and how it functions, I would argue it's a product of the previous lesson, propaganda, and it indoctrinates some people willingly, but it indoctrinates a group of people to follow a certain philosophy or you know political system, if you will. But that relationship between propaganda and communism is something that we should think about as we're going through these questions and seeing how communism is effective. Next question: who created communism, and what did the creator know about African people? Who created
I think
communism?
it was Karl Marx, and Karl Marx didn't know anything about Black people.
Yes,
Very little.
yes. What was the rest of that quote about knowing little about Negroes? He knew little, but it was some additional information. They said he did two other things in regards to Negroes.
He didn't speak about them.
I think it was wrote
He
and
wrote less. Yeah, he wrote less about it.
wrote and thought even less about them. There's very little, very small. I'll work on the scaling. He knew very little about Negroes, thought and wrote even less about them. That can be found on page 134 of Course of African Philosophy. Next question: what type of people are empowered in a communist government?
Poor white people.
Poor white people. Yeah. Is it just poor white people or just the common white man? Mr. Garvey says on page 134, let me go to some of this. Most ignorant class of the race. Um,
The ignorant white mass.
yes. Do you have that um, in front of you? I'm trying to pull it up. Page 134.
134, paragraph 2, in the middle of it.
Could you just read the paragraph 130 on page 134 that includes?
Okay. It was founded principally on the theory of Karl Marx, who knew very little about Negroes and who thought and wrote less about them, in a dangerous theory of economic and political reformation because it seeks to put the government in the hands of the ignorant white mass who have not been able to destroy their natural prejudices toward the Negro and other non-white people.
Absolutely. So very clear as to what Mr. Garvey felt the origins of communism, the intentions of communism, and the desires of communism. And he felt that it was designed by Karl Marx to empower what Mr. Garvey considered the ignorant white masses. Questions or comments so far? But again, as a tool of propaganda, communism was a ideology created by a small group, particularly Karl Marx, and propagated throughout societies. And it was beginning to spread here in the United States at the same time that Mr. Garvey was promoting the UNIA. So some of the ideals and principles may have seemed similar, everyone working for the common good, but Mr. Garvey had to make it clear that communism was not for us, and it was designed to empower whites as opposed to the UNIA, particularly for Negroes and Negroes only, exclusively to empower Negroes. All right, next question. What is an enemy, or what is the enemy of communism, I think? What is an enemy of communism? I guess is how I had it. What does Mr. Garvey talk about as an enemy of communism in this lesson? Dr. Kuda? Enemy of communism?
The capitalistic white man is the enemy of communism for the preservation of his own interest, if nothing more.
Yep.
That is on page 135.
Yes.
It's the white man who is the enemy of communism.
Yes. See, white capitalistic system. So top of page 135. Therefore, you may see how dangerous it would be placed in the hands by the very strength of his numbers. So this is again, it's talking about the ignorant white masses, a government dictated and controlled by him, while the capitalistic system is ruthless and bad, and nevertheless gives the Negro a chance of employment, competitive with the working class white man for the purpose of extracting profit and labor, irrespective of color of the labor. Where is it? Okay, yeah. The capitalistic white man is an enemy of communism for the preservation of his own interests, if nothing more. Negro, not being an industrial employer, shares therefore the opportunity to labor in competition with the white worker only because the white capitalist is willing to use anybody who can contribute the most profit to his industries, regardless of color. So from a employment competitive standpoint, Mr. Garvey felt that capitalism was an enemy to communism. Any questions or comments? Need to go further into that. It can be a little confusing, and I can explain it further if needed, but some of the further questions hopefully will explain it better as well. Next question. Why did communists want to invite Negroes to join their ranks?
To support their theory
Support their theory.
that that whites are communists too.
Support their theory that whites are communists.
He said it, the scheme is it's vile and wicked scheme.
Mr. Garvey has more of a capitalistic answer.
Because they think blacks are communists too.
And what does that do? When Negroes join communist ranks and blacks are known as communists too, what does that mean?
They think that white communists will get the consideration over blacks.
Yes. So from a capitalistic competition standpoint, hiring process. We already know that as blacks, we are discriminated against just for being blacks. Mr. Garvey says that communists wanted blacks to be in their ranks because, in addition to being labeled as blacks, we would also be labeled as communists. So it'd be two strikes against us in regards to employment or seeking employment. So it would take us out of the competition in regards to employment. So white men can still be communists, but to an employer, at least they're not a black communist. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. All the outrages in war, mob violence, extreme punishment were done by what class of people? All the outrages in war, mob violence, extreme punishment were done by what class of people?
The lowest class of white agents.
Yes, I think that is lowest class of white agents, page 136. Thank you, Dr. Kuda. Is there any elaboration on that on page 136, Dr. Kuda? Yeah, it is. Yeah, if you could read that paragraph, I'm gonna share for everyone else. Could you read that for us?
When it is considered that all the outrages in war, mob violence, and extreme punishment have been administered to the Negro by the lowest class of white agents as soldiers in war, as sailors, and as the mob, the Negro should have no doubt that his greatest enemy is the common white man who does not have enough intelligence to know the injury that he is doing to a race. Even if he is paid to do so by his master, he still doesn't know the injury he's doing to a race.
Yes, and that was actually, I forgot, that was the next question is the greatest enemy to the Negro, which is the common white man that does not have enough intelligence to know the injury he is doing to a race. Any questions or comments so far? But again, from a propaganda standpoint, from an institution standpoint, the masses are usually the followers, and they're not the ones that are creating these ideologies. And we, must understand that not only are others creating ideology, but we must be creating our own ideology to promote our race. Okay. But intelligence is a common theme that we've seen. And Mr. Garvey says not only, is it the intelligence within us that we must develop, but it's the lack of intelligence of others, particularly the white man, that has become our greatest enemy. Okay. Negro's greatest enemy, common white man who does not have enough intelligence to know the injury he is doing to a race. Mob has always been made up of what type of people? What type of people make up the mob? And not, mafia, but riotous mob is always made up of what type of people?
Based on what we've just read, according to Garvey, the lowest class of the white race make up a mob.
Pretty much. Um, Yeah, and that's a common theme. Lowest class, ignorant individuals. Lowest class of the white race, common, ignorant people from whom communists are made up and whom the party is intended to give political and economic advantage. So, Mr. Garvey heavily criticized the intelligence of the individuals that the Communist Party was, um, empowering. That's the best way to say that. Who carries the expense of economic improvements?
Economic improvements is always an exploitation of the weaker people.
What does that mean?
The people in society who don't have much control get used. At different times, it's been different sectors of the people. Like one time it was the Chinese when they exploited them and had them build a railroad. Well, we know about us. Another time it was the indigenous people here when they murdered them. Another time it was even some of their own people who they used, like the Scottish, the any other white people who weren't born here. They kind of used them to exploit them also.
Yes. But the point I was trying to get at in regards to exploitation, and I think you mentioned it, we're talking power, strength, um, and most of it comes down to economic and political power. But the basis is organization. So how we can um, benefit or transfer organization into economic power? How can we transfer organization into political power? And Mr. Garvey is saying it's always the ones that are least organized that are always taken advantage of. And he mentioned how other groups had been taken advantage of throughout history, but at this time, most of those groups have organized themselves, and the only ones who hadn't would still be the Negro. He says that for the Negro who is exposed is the most ruthless exploitation is left to be exploited in the future. Therefore, only the Negro who is exposed to the most ruthless exploitation is left to be exploited in the future.
Thank you, President John. Race first.
First, thank you, Brother Art. Great answer. See, Brother E. Okay. I'm on my greater exploitation of weaker people. What must the Negro do in regards to communism and why? What does Mr. Garvey say our response to communism should be?
Let the communists fight their own battles. We should stand back and watch.
Sorry, I had to step away. Was that brother Art? Was that you, brother Art? I heard.
Yeah, I said we should let the communists fight their own battles. We should step back and watch.
Yes. Do you remember why? I actually don't even remember why. I mean, I know obviously self-reliance. We need to focus on ourselves, but I'm not sure if Mr. Garvey elaborated on why, because it won't help us either way.
We must be willing to take advantage of it because some opportunities for us might present itself.
Yes. Yeah. What the Negro must do is let the communists fight their own battles and stand back and watch the fight. Negro must take advantage of the opportunities presented during the fight. So again, that goes back to when we talked in propaganda, the second half of it, that was war. And it talked about how war is the best time to take advantage of your transgressors. And again, war doesn't always have to be open warfare. We actually, the United States just started economic war with the tariff situation and with other countries. So, um, from this political propaganda standpoint, let the communists fight their fight, and we focus on ourselves in the meantime. Negro must take advantage of the opportunities presented during the fight, but must not join the fight as a communist because he will be helping to bear the brunt of the battle with no guarantee that his condition will be better, but objectively worse, because he will help to transfer government from a more intelligent and cultured in behavior to that of the ignorant, more prejudiced, and more cruel. I think that's the basis of the why we wouldn't want to assist the communists. Transfer of power from what Mr. Garvey considered more cultured to the more cruel. Last question. When we are asked to join the Communist Party, what should the response be? And I would expand this. Well, I'm gonna just stop there. When we are asked to join the Communist Party, what should the response be?
When you get to Russia, but not before then.
Absolutely. And we must embrace that as a nationalistic ideology. We are seeking a nation for ourselves. So for us to assist others, establishing their nation, what kind of sense does that make for, as we claim to be self-reliant? So let others build for themselves, and we must focus on building for ourselves. That's the last question I got on communism. Any questions, concerns before we go to the reading for the night? Okay, all right, that is good because we're a little bit, like I said, we're behind by a week. So I know I got a couple. I know I think it's lesson 19 is short, so I might be able to do 2 lessons tonight. Do I have any volunteer readers? Somebody want to read? All them people. Diane is read. Everybody's been doing pretty well. I'll give you all the night off. Next week, Brother James, I may call on you to read. Okay, lesson 18. And I try to read, I kind of read a little fast, so please keep up. Um, lesson 18, commercial and industrial transactions. Commerce and industry are the feeding props of the economic life of the state, the community, or society as a whole. On these two foundations rests a universal system of exchange with its financial factors. Every progressive people and nation indulge in some form of commerce and industry, manufacturing or agricultural industry. It is by such activities that individuals find occupation within the normal life of the state. You are either an employer or an employee, big or small. The employees are those who work for the employers. The employers are those who employ the employees and pay them salaries or wages. The employers pay themselves salaries out of their profits or dividends, so both employer and employee live off commerce and industry. Those who do not work in this way are either wards of the state or recipients of charity or people who live off their earnings of others, which flow from those who are industrious enough to work either as an employer or an employee. Every self-respecting man finds an occupation, either as an employer or as an employee, either as an employee or as an employer, according to his choice. With his ability and general fitness, he earns a livelihood. All men try to earn as much as they possibly can. To do so, they generally equip themselves for their occupation. A good laborer or worker qualifies himself for his particular work so as to demand the best reward or wages. The businessman, proprietor, or employer generally goes into the most profitable business so as to secure the largest amount of profit. The man without a business of his own or without training to perform a particular type of job is always at a disadvantage in making a living. Great wealth is made out of commerce and industry, also the professions which depend upon commerce and industry. Commercial enterprises are different kinds as are industrial enterprises. In commerce, we have the grocery business, the lumber business, the ironmonger's business, the mercantile business or dry good business, the clothing business, the tailoring business, retail and wholesale businesses of all kinds. Industrially, we have the manufacturing business, that manufactures the particular articles of commerce, while the farming industry produces such commodities that are necessary for human consumption. The industrious man finds an occupation in one or the other of these enterprises or professions if he is to be a proprietor or employer. He must have his own wholesale establishment or retail establishment. He must have his own factories or mills, either large or small. His capital may be $1 million or $10, according to the size of his enterprise. Maybe $1 million or $10, according to the size of his enterprise. One proprietor has a chain of grocery stores. Another has a push cart with his wares on it, but both of them are proprietors. At the end of a week, one may make a profit of $10,000 on investment, the other may make a profit of $10. This is due to the difference in size of the business. So a man who is enterprising with little capital can start a business of his own equally or simultaneously with the man who has large capital. One farmer may be the proprietor of 10,000 acres of land. Another farmer may be a proprietor of 1 acre of land, but both of them are farmers and proprietors. Often it is the small proprietor who ultimately becomes a large proprietor through the success of his small venture. Most of the successful businessmen in the world started with a small amount of capital. Rockefeller started with $1. So did Carnegie. Henry Ford started with less than $50, but they both became great trust magnates in less than a half a century. They opened the way for enterprising men who are willing to start with a modest or small beginning and work steadily to build a business of greater magnitude. The examples of small men starting small businesses and building them up as massive concerns are common. In England, Joseph Lyons, a Jew starting with less than $10 capital, built the Great Joseph Lyons Company tea room and restaurant syndicates that control the catering trade in all of Great Britain. This is also true of Thomas Lipton, who afterwards became Sir Thomas Lipton, the great tea magnate of England. This kind of enterprising success has its counterpart in nearly every country in the world, where small men have grown big by entering a business and sticking to a business until it becomes a colossal success. Many an Italian millionaire started with a push cart selling oranges and bananas in the streets of New York and Chicago. Many Greeks also became millionaires by starting with a small lunch counter at some side street corner with capital of not more than $10. Many an Assyrian peddler started peddling with a box slung across his shoulder containing assorted merchandise not valued at more than $5 to become a millionaire, or merchant prince and proprietor of a goods establishment later. Many an enterprising boy started out with 35 cents to buy a newspaper and sell them, the morning and afternoon editions, and climbed up to a great newspaper publisher or proprietor. The fault with the Negro in business, commercial or industrial, has been his inability to appreciate starting at a given point and climbing steadily, while other races have been willing to start from the bottom and climb up. The Negroes have always desired to start from the top, therefore he comes down. No success ever came from the top, it always comes from the bottom. The Negro must learn to climb from the bottom up. He will never be an industrial or commercial factor until he has learned the principles of commercial and industrial success. These principles are as much open to him as to anybody else. Find a particular kind of business you would like to engage yourself in because you can make profit, because you can make it profitable, and start it with whatever capital you have. You can start selling newspapers with a capital of 25 cents. You can start selling oranges with a capital of $1. You can start selling stockings for ladies with a capital of $2. You can start selling ties for gentlemen with a capital of $2. Find out what your neighbors want most and are willing to buy. Start selling it to them. If not in a shop, by going door to door. If your capital is larger, your opportunities become larger and easier. But no Negro sits no but no Negro needs no, but no Negro needs sit down at his doorstep and mourn his bad luck if he has 25 cents in his pocket to start a business. If you invest 25 cents wisely at 9 o'clock in the morning, by 6 o'clock in the evening, you may have 50 cents. If you eat 10 cents for the day and carry over 40 cents for the next day as capital, from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock on the next day, you may have 75 cents. Eat another 10 cents out of the 75 cents, which will leave you with capital for the next day of 65 cents. Your 65-cent capital may bring you 90 cents. Eat 10 cents and carry over 80 cents for the following day, and at 6 o'clock on that day, you may have $1.20. Eat 10 cents and carry over the 110 to the business of the next day, and at 6 o'clock on the next day, you may have $1.50. And so you follow this method for 1 year, and at the end of that year, your capital in business may be $25, and your income may be $5 on that day, out of which you provide your food and still have a large capital to face the next day. In 5 years, your capital may be $1,000. In 10 years, your capital may be $10,000. In 50 years, you may be a millionaire. That is how Rockefeller did it. That is how Carnegie did it. And they left their impression on the world as self-made men. If the Negro is going to look at Marshall Field or Sears and Roebuck in Chicago, John Wanamaker in Philadelphia, or George Selfridge in London, England, and say, I want to work like that, the dreamer will never start because nothing starts that way. Wanamaker had to climb from the ground to the top of his skyscraper by perseverance and plodding, and so did Selfridge and Marshall Field. They all started from the ground floor climbing up. The Negro must start from the ground floor of commerce and industry and climb up. When we can make a good handkerchief, then later he will make a gross, then make a million gross with his factory going at top speed. When he can make a single tie successfully, then he will make his gross, then hundreds of gross, then thousands of gross, and his factory will hum and buzz with activity. Businesses are necessary. Shops, stores, wholesale and retail, and factories. These are the places where the majority of people are employed outside the farm. The Negro, to be employed and to be his own employer, must have his independent farms, stores, factories, and mills. But he must start them as the white man did, growing from a single room of industry into the mighty factory on the hillside of the plain. Without commerce and industry, a people perish economically. The Negro is perishing because he has no economic system, no commerce and industry. There are tricks in every business. Never go into any business until you know all the tricks thereof. Otherwise, you are bound to fail. If you like to indulge or engage yourself in a certain line of business, spend as much time as you possibly can investigating from your friends, acquaintances, or whoever can approach who is already in that business or knows about that business, so as to have all the information necessary about it before you start. It is the people who know of the tricks in trade that make the most profit of the trade. If you are going to sell ripe bananas on a truck through the streets, find out how long a banana fully ripe will last in handling. So you may gauge the so time of sale of the banana so that they may not spoil in your hands. So with oranges, salt, fish, meat, ribbons, hats, shoes, or anything that time and age will affect. If you don't know about the particulars of these things and invest in them, you will find yourself losing money instead of making it. No one goes into business just for fun or pleasure, but for profit and results. Study all the possible means of making profit and getting good results out of the business in which you are to engage yourself. A democracy is the safest kind of government for persons of individual initiative who desire to go into business to live under, because it gives every man a chance to do business more safely. As a fact, the capitalist of today was the laborer or worker of yesterday. Most of the capitalists of our present age were workers 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, or 5 years ago. Hence, the man who wants to go into business commercially, industrially, or agriculturally and win a fortune for himself cannot and should not be a communist, because communism robs the individual of his personal initiative and ambition for the result thereof. Democracy, therefore, is the kind of government that offers to the individual the opportunity to rise from a laborer to the status of a capitalist or employer. Property. In acquiring property for commercial, industrial, or personal purposes or use, always see that you get the value for your money. The property market is regulated by the real estate brokers or agents and the mortgaging and trust companies who take mortgages on property. These people create the rise and fall in property values to suit their own conveniences and their own profits. When they can get the public to buy at high value, they induce the public to do so. When the public will not buy enough to ensure their profit, they reduce the value of property and then encourage the buying of same. When the buying takes a gradual rise, they inflate the values again to make the public pay more for what they have started to buy again. As far as Negroes are concerned, the custom of real estate brokers and mortgaging companies has always been to sell them property at 1/4 and 1/3 and sometimes 1/2 been to sell them property at 1/4, 1/3, and sometimes 1/2, and other times 100% higher than the real value. When the Negro is ready to sell, he never gets half of what he paid for his property except in exceptional cases. It is always suggested that his ownership and particularly his occupancy carries depreciation. Therefore, to be safe when the Negro is purchasing property, he should first go to the official registry of property transfers in his community for a record of titles to find out the price paid for said property by the last purchaser, so that he will know how much he is being charged in excess of the last sale price. He should also go to the government registry where the particular property is assessed for taxation to find out the real value from the government point of view for the property. Government assessed value on property is always about 2/3 of its ordinary market commercial value, and 1/3 the government assessment. And you will find the real value, and you will find the real market value of the property. Wait, sorry. Add 1/3 to the government assessment, and you will find the real market value of the property. Never pay in excess of this value except you can afford to stand the loss to suit your own convenience. Because when you want to sell your property, that is the method others will adopt to find out its real value. Always be careful and watch your mortgage or the person you have bought the property from to whom you owe balance after you have paid off the excess value of the property and started to pay on the real value. When the mortgager or seller of the property sells it to you in excess of its value, he is always friendly and tolerant. He's always friendly and tolerant while you are paying off the excess value because he realizes he is the one who is benefiting all the time. But when you start to pay on the real value of the property to have equity in it, that will make it marketable equity, he becomes nervous in belief that you may pay off the property and own it. The more you pay off on the real value of the property, the more nervous he becomes because he is always counting on your inability to pay for the property so as to foreclose on you to sell the property a second time, so as to make a double profit out of the excess value. That is to say, if he sells you the property originally at an excess value of $1,000, he will encourage you to pay off the $1,000 with tolerance because all that is gross profit. But he is always hoping to have the property to sell to another person at an excess value of $1,000. He can only have it when you have forfeited your regular payments on the real value to make it possible for him to foreclose. Therefore, he may trick you into being off guard to pay your first interest and sinking fund regularly. Then, in the first lapse of unpreparedness, he serves you by foreclosing and gets property in his hands again for the second attempt. This is the method of all usurers who take mortgages and property and who deal with property as a business. If you will investigate, you will find that the majority of Negroes in every country have lost their property this way. Charitable institutions. Charity suggests sympathy and goodwill of the fortunate for the unfortunate. The poor we shall have with us always, and no one knows who shall be the poor and who and let me read that again. The poor we shall have with us always, and no one knows who shall be the poor. And so we become kindly in our behavior and disposition towards those who are unable to help themselves through misfortune or bad circumstances of any kind. It caught me off guard because this first line, the poor we shall have with us always, that's from the Bible. Christ said that to his disciples. To properly dispense kindness to those in need, society decides on the establishment of institutions for charity. These may be hospitals, homes for the aged, home for the blind, foundling institutions, asylums, etc. All well-organized races have such institutions for their own and contribute to and support them. The Negro must also be interested in the founding and keeping of institutions for his own poor. In giving charity to a worthy cause, nothing is lost. In fact, just like casting your bread upon the waters to come back to you after many days. You may help to do good. You may help to do good to a member of your own race without personally knowing the person. And 10 years hence, some relative of that person may help some relative of yours without knowing them. It is the bread coming back upon the waters. To give charity outside your race is probably sending it too far away, but to give it within your race is probably handing it to your own relative. In fact, charity begins at home, and your race is much nearer to you than a neighboring one. So always find time to bestow charity upon your race first. Every Negro helped from the ground to stand up is another man set on the journey of racial responsibility. When possible, always seek to help your Negro brother. Never allow him to fall because as low down as he goes, he may ultimately pull you down with him. As high up as you can send him, he might ultimately pull you up with him. Let us then push everyone of the race up and not down. To help a Negro boy or girl to become a useful man or woman is probably to assist in giving the world a great character who never would have found himself or herself but for the early help he received from you or your charitable institutions. Try to educate the boys and girls who have no parents. Try to assist those who have no one to depend on. Never let orphans go astray or fall into the hands of other races. They will only make servants of them. If you help them within the race, they may yet become the leaders of the race in some particular line of success. Before you give to others not of your race, think first how much your race needs it and place it there. Never be unkind to your race. Never allow the members of your race to die in poverty. It is your fault if they do. Always put yourself in the position of unfortunate fellow and ask, quote, how would I like to be in his stead, end quote. If your feelings and conscience rebel against his condition, then help him out of it. if you can, and as much as you do unto him, so may others do unto you in your time or hour of need. Whenever you find your own racial institutions worthy, support them. In any community in which you live, always seek to have your own charitable institutions. If the public funds are used for charity, then seek to get a portion for your group, separate and distinct from that of others, because you may not desire charity for yourself for the time being. Why should you not support the appeal for charity of those of your race who may need it? One may be prosperous today on his own initiative and account, and by misadventure lose the natural ability of self-initiative to become dependent upon lose the natural ability of self-initiative to become dependent upon charity. You may lose your eyes, arms, or legs. You may lose your health without contributing to it personally, but purely by accident. In that case, you will become a recipient of charity without your expecting it or contributing to the cause. So charity should always be maintained for its own good, to benefit those who may be unfortunate enough to need it, and the next person to need it may be you. No one can tell. So never frown upon a worthy cause and never refuse to give and support if you can afford it. That completes commercial and industrial transactions, lesson 18. Any questions on lesson 18? No questions, no questions, lesson 18. We are making good on time, and I recommend we proceed with lesson 19, winning mankind by kindness. We'll do the questions for both of these lessons next week, and then do the reading for living for purpose, living for something, I think. Living for something, yeah. We'll have lesson 20. We'll read lesson 20 next week. Let me see how long this is. I think this is like a good 1 week lesson. We may start history of UNIA. Lesson 21 is pretty long. That one it usually takes more than one lesson to get through that. So if there aren't any questions or comments or concerns, we'll read lesson 19, winning mankind by kindness. And I think this is a great follow-up to what we just read in regards to charity. So all right. Lesson 19, winning mankind by kindness. So this is the lesson 19, 20, 21, 22, fourth to the last lesson. But important lesson because we're getting to the totality of the course and the totality of expression of the course. So we talked about character, leadership, society, diplomacy, man, purpose of institutions, propaganda, communism. Now Mr. Garvey is getting to a general approach as to how we interact with the world. So as we go out, what is our general attitude and approach to the common man and woman? Winning mankind by kindness, lesson 19. A touch of kindness moves the heart of all men. To be kind is to be generous and to be pleasant, to be inviting in your manner, to be sympathetic and thoughtful of others' feelings, of the other fellow's feelings may cost you nothing. You should be kind because sometimes you can extend it by a pleasant smile or a pleasant salutation or a good wish. To say, I wish you well, I wish you everything that is prosperous. I hope you succeed. I am sorry to hear of your bad fortune. I hope things will turn out successfully for you. I wish you a long life and joy and happiness of it is a good turn. All these convey to your friends, acquaintances, or even your enemies a beauty of thought, a soul that wins appreciation and often gratitude. And Okay, I don't know if he talks about it here. If your friend comes to you for help, you cannot give it to him. Don't turn him away with cold words, but with words of cheer and comfort. It may bring him joy with his disappointment, even though he does not get the thing he had hoped for. But I don't know if this is the lesson, but previously, Mr. Garvey talked about how a kind word doesn't cost us anything. And that's what I was getting with that previous paragraph, where we, you know, wish you everything prosperous. Sorry to hear of your bad fortune. Just saying these words of sympathy don't cost us anything. You can never tell who is sincere or who is honest. Therefore, you must always be on your guard not to lend your money. Don't give away your money foolishly because you may never get it back. If you are in doubt that you will get back a loan to a friend, then try never to lend money to that friend because he will become your enemy later. Offer him a drink of water, a piece of cake, or a delicious fruit, and then express your sorrow in the kindliest of words, or your inability to help him at that time, and see that when he leaves the gate, you smile with him and win his smile in return, which is an assurance of parting friendship, which probably would not be otherwise if you had bluntly refused his original request. Win the world with a smile, with the hearty shake of the hand, with a glad welcome. It costs very little. It costs less than an ugly stare or the fixed hand of unwelcome. So just as it costs nothing to be mean or whatever, it costs nothing to be kind. um, or just as much as it costs nothing to be unkind, it costs nothing to be kind. In the organizational life of the UNIA, always gives to those you want to win. Give to the poor in the neighborhood and win them over to you. Give to them from the charitable funds of the organization. Give them necessities and niceties that they need and cannot buy. Be kind to the little children of the neighborhood. Give them candies and from the charity fund. Give them pennies to buy candies, and these little ones will carry the name of the UNIA through the neighborhood. Then visit the neighborhood from house to house. Leave a word of cheer everywhere you go, and then persuade them to join the UNIA. If they are in trouble, console them. If the organization can help them with advice, give it to them. If you cannot, recommend them to some officer of the organization who has been well trained for such work. Have this officer go there and give the required advice. But let your good work be seen and known in the neighborhood and in the community so that they will always come to you for organizational help. Remember that the organization is for the purpose of helping the needy, the distressed, and to assist all members of the race who need help. It is by these methods that the Catholic Church has won the hearts of the people, by the charity of its sisterhood and its priesthood, helping the sick, the distressed, and restoring them to health. When people have recovered from their bad conditions, their gratitude becomes the pillar on which the church rests. Let the gratitude of the Negro people in your community be the pillar on which the organization, excuse me, let the gratitude of the Negro people in your community be the pillar on which the organization rests in your community. There should always be a charitable fund in every division of the UNIA. Hold on. I gotta take my time. There should always be a charitable fund in every division of the UNIA, and a certain amount placed at the disposal of responsible representatives of the association. I'm gonna need somebody to help me finish this.
I got you. There should always be a charitable fund in every division of the UNIA, and a certain amount placed at the disposal of responsible representatives of the association for the dispensing of charity to the neighborhood in which they live. As a representative of the association, the charity should be disclosed in the name of the organization to maintain its reputation in the community. Let the tender touch of kindness be everywhere, going from the UNIA to the people in the community, when men will remember you for nothing else. They will remember you for the kindly deed, the touch of sympathy that seldom comes from others, which is the duty of every representative of the UNIA. That is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Sister Desiree. And there's actually a quote that I believe Sister Maya Angelou is famous for now that's similar to that, but it says like people may not remember your name or other things, but they'll remember how you make them felt, how you made them feel. And that's a similar sentiment in that last paragraph. They may not remember anything else about us, but the charity that we provide. They may say, hey, it was, some group they had red and black, and I can't remember, but I remember they came out to the community and helped us, provided resources and food and information and talked to us. And that feeling is something that they will remember. So, as Mr. Garvey says in the end, they will be remembered for the kindly deed, the touch of sympathy that seldom comes from others, and this is the duty of every representative of the UNIA. So, as we represent the UNIA, in addition to character and discipline and diplomacy, we must also remember to be kind and to have that expression and um, I'm trying to think of a way to say it, but exuding that feeling of kindness, and that's what people remember about us. Any questions or comments on lesson 19? And I guess that'll we can't do 3 lessons in one night, so we'll have to call it a night.
See you on the road, though. Yeah, and that scripture, I think that the last lesson you were talking about was, what was it? You were quoting this one scripture is lost in the man. I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
Oh, you will always have the poor,
it's
but you will
Christ.
always have me. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's when Christ was on this last leg of his human existence.
right. Yeah, the poor will always be with you. Yeah, but the bride or the groom or something like that. But me, basically, I won't always be with you. Is kind of what he was saying.
Yeah, because they were celebrating, and some of the apostles thought, man, we should be saving this money for other folks.
Right.
And he said, no, let them celebrate with me. Because you're always going to have the poor to give money and charity to, but you
Yep.
ain't going to always have me with you, because he's about to die. But yeah, I like sometimes we need to be reminded in the course of all of our studies that we are predicated upon promoting the spirit of pride and love.
Yes, sir.
And, there was a guy I wish everybody in the world could have met in my younger years when I was a wayward youth incarcerated. He used to be a brother in the system named Johnny Gorham Banks. He was a strong Moor brother, but he's Christian, Islam, and Orthodox and everything. He was at every temple, at every study group, at every meeting, everywhere, and he's walking around with this cane and this really was like a staff. And he had those on these garbs, look like Moses, and walking around the compound, showing love, giving brothers positive words, and everybody knows him, everybody loves him. He's just a good dude. Everything about him was just positive, and you see him, you just start smiling. Hey, brother, love, what's going on? Hey, brother, man, good to see you, man. And everybody was just positive. You were down. You see brother Johnny, everybody was pumped up. So it was kind of that spirit. I think it was Maya Angelou you were quoting from. People forget what you do, they'll forget what you say, but they won't forget how you made them feel or something like that. But yeah, definitely, how people receive us as Garveyites may make all the difference in the world in the end, because they are going to forget the things you say and do. But again, how you make them feel is, a little more deeper, lodged in your psyche. And so, try to be positive. This lesson always about winning the world with kindness. reminds me of certain people who I knew were kind over the years. And the one that always comes to mind is the sister I used to go when I was in the Jehovah's Witness in the Kingdom Hall, where sister used to be positive and always had something nice to say about everybody. So one guy said, "Man, but she had something nice to say about the devil." And she happened to overhear them talking when he said it. And she thought about it for a second and said, "Well, he is a hard worker." But basically, yeah, there's always something nice to say about somebody, some kind of way. So, it's just finding that positivity. You never know, the difference it may make, what somebody might be contemplating and going through depression or, whatever. And, feel like there's no one there, particularly in this day and age. This is an information age, but it's an age of a lot of emotional disconnection. And so, sometimes just a pat on the shoulder, a kind word, and, might be enough to, change somebody's mind. Even I can remember years ago, I just, one of my high school counselors, I saw him one day, as I was much older, and he was asking me, because he had been in the movement for a while, he was asking me about, he said, "Hey, brother, how's your family going?" I'm like, "Oh, wife, children, doing great. Everybody's good." He's like, "Okay." I mean, then he asked me, how often do you mention her when you go out and speak? And I just started thinking about it. I was like, I mean, unless I bring her up, I mean, nah, not often. He said, "Here's what I want you to do, brother. Just mention her everywhere you go." He said, "Whenever she's not there, even when she is there, just acknowledge her. I just want you to do that for me." Because he was in a bad relationship breakup while he was active and all that stuff. So that was a lesson he learned from the movement. So I just happened to try the following, like a week later, we had a Kwanzaa event. And, so thinking about what he said, I just mentioned, well, I like to thank, my wife for being in the back. She's helping with some of the cooking and my children and blah, 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 blah. And this, without them, I couldn't do this and that, So after I said that, we got an application that we weren't even looking for from a strong member of the community. And she came up to me later and said, "Brother, just because you said what you said, I've been with these movements all these years and nobody thanked me, nobody did this. I never heard someone just express love for somebody like that." And that really moved me, So I immediately went and got an application. And I was like, wow, who knew, that just a simple thing sometimes can just make a difference, Anyway, so when it comes to winning the mankind with kindness, I'm definitely a believer that it's possible we can win the world back to Garveyism through acts of kindness and just being genuine, So anyway, I just wanted to make those comments.
Yes, sir. So thank you, Brother Morima. And yeah, that just reminds me of one of the challenges that I see we have, and it's basically simple. It's relationships. We as a people, as a family, we got to come together. And as UNIA, we take responsibility to bring that back together. And Mr. Garvey tells us right here clearly in lesson 19 the spirit that we must have as we're carrying this out. So the follow up to the discussion on charity and charitable programs is winning mankind by kindness. So um, we must have these funds, and we must have these funds set aside so that we can create these programs and initiate and execute these programs, but it's specifically for this purpose of winning back our brothers and sisters. So thank you, Brother Morimal. Anyone else, questions, comments on lesson 19 or lesson 18?
Well, I just have a comment. I just want to apologize ahead of time or apologize for past time if I have done anything disrespectful or hurt another brothers or sisters feelings or whatever. I know I can be a little rough at times. Maybe it's from the military or whatever, but I'm just apologizing ahead of time. And you're right. It's the time for us, we have to really get into the mindset, not just the mindset, but also the heart set that we have to show each other more gratitude, appreciation, and love all together, and one of the reasons why I'm sticking with Georgia is because just alone with the kindness that I have received. right? Especially from you, President John. But yeah, so it's a new day. It's a new time for brothers and sisters to actually come together. If you guys want to know, there's some more boycotts going on, and the new Black Panther Party actually put together a whole list. So that one day, as far as the 28th, is not the only day. From April 21st to the 28th, they're doing General Mills boycott. From May 6th to May 12th, it's Amazon boycott. They doing another Amazon boycott now from March 7th to the 14th. I wasn't privy on that one. They March 21st to the 28th, they're doing Netso boycott. April 7th to the 14th, they're doing a Walmart boycott. April 18th, they're doing an economic again blackout. June 24th through the 30th, they're doing a McDonald's boycott. June 3rd through the 9th, Target boycott. And again, and May 20th to the 26th, they're doing a Walmart boycott. And of course, July 4th, Independence Day, is supposed to be an all-day boycott. But in my opinion, yeah, it's good that they have this. They're doing this as a collective. But my thing is that we need to stop spending our money with these troglodytes and do the best that we can as brothers and sisters to spend money with other brothers and sisters. Salute race first. That's all I gotta say.
I agree. Thank you, Sister Desiree. I agree. And you always a sister. You always be welcome here at 421. So thank you for that. We love you as well. um, yeah, last thing I want to say, and then we'll open it up one more time before we close out. But lesson 19 is extremely powerful, and it is a spirit that we must carry in general as representatives of the UNIA, as Mr. Garvey directed us in that very last statement. But I don't want it to overshadow lesson 18. This is a very important lesson in Division 421. We really need to take lesson 18 extremely seriously and break it down. I've asked for assistance from all officers from a business standpoint and bringing business proposals. And I want us to remember the principles that Mr. Garvey is putting forth in this lesson, because I feel like a lot of times that we have discussions around business, we blatantly disregard what Mr. Garvey has instructed us in lesson 18. And what I mean particularly is in regards to starting small. We seem to be averse to starting at a given point and working our way up. It's almost as if we want to start from, the top. So just something, we'll break that down further next week, but I just didn't want lesson 19 to overshadow the principles in lesson 18. This is that economic foundation that we've been talking about for years. And, in addition to lesson 10, where we talk about economy, lesson 18 is really industry, commercial and industrial commerce and industry. So let's really take these lessons seriously and put these principles into practice this year. And I'll more so touch on that with our business leadership, but we've been discussing things for a very long time. Even last year, we talked about being able to fund our officers. And one of the reasons that we couldn't do it was because we felt that we hadn't put forth enough or basically made enough profit through business. And we seem to be in a similar situation this year. So that's an offline discussion. That's an executive body discussion. But we're not going to continue to look over lesson 18. Any questions, comments as we close out? It's 9:25. We're closing out early tonight, and we got quiz on lesson 18 and 19 next week, and we'll start lesson 20, or we'll finish. Yeah, we can read all of lesson 20, Living for Something, which is another very, very pivotal, important summary, in general behavior and thought process that we should carry out in addition to winning mankind by kindness. Living for a purpose is a good summation of all of these lessons and our goals. And then we'll get to lesson 21, history of the UNIA. That basically recaps, everything from Garvey's perspective and basically how we will promote the UNIA and grow the UNIA. And then lesson 22 focuses on Mr. Garvey and the UNIA's 5-year plan. So we'll talk about those as we close out.
President John.
Yes, brother.
I got a question.
Yes.
Sister Desiree, can you send me those dates on those boycotts so I can put them in the whirlwind?
I sure can. Send me your give me your phone number because I got it sent on the phone in my text box, so I don't know how to share it another way, but you can send me your email or whatever. I'll figure out the email, but if you send me your phone, give me your phone number right quick, I can send it to you there about the boycotts.
Okay, you ready for it?
Oh, okay, let me go in here. Hold on. All right. Yes. Yeah. So I think that Netto company that they make chips and all kind of stuff like that. What's your number?
571
571
331
331
7050.
7050. All right, sounds good. I'm gonna send it to you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Race first, family.
Race first.
First, thank you, Brother Art. Brother Israel, you had a hand up.
Yes, brother. Thank you so much. Welcome me. I just wanted to thank Sister Desiree for inviting me. It's my first time here. But, sorry we were late. We're in another leadership meeting, but happy to be here, man. Happy to learn. I have some business and political experience, so if there's any way that I can help bands and those plans, I'm happy to be a service.
Thank you, my brother. Where you what state you in?
I'm in Central Florida, Altamont Springs, which is just northeast of Orlando.
Okay.
Originally from Miami.
Okay, not a problem. Yeah, we are heavily based in Atlanta, but we have support in different areas, primarily Southeast region. Sister Desiree has strong support in the West Coast as well. But just as far as our ability, immediate response would be more so in the Atlanta area.
Yes, sir. Much appreciated. And I hope to be a part of that in Florida.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you. Okay, that's all you had, Brother Israel. You had your hand up. You were just welcoming, introducing yourself.
Yes, sir. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining. Anyone else? Closing comments. 9:30. Good meeting.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Sister Desiree for those words of love and humility. Appreciate and reciprocate the love and the positive comments and the good information. So keep buying black or put it back.
That's right. That's right. Okay. We're gonna prepare to close out. Brother James Avery.
Yes, yes, sir.
You know the motto and the slogan.
Do I know the slogan?
The motto: "One God, one aim, one destiny," in Africa for the Africans.
Not all by heart, not the whole thing.
All right, no
Not the
problem.
whole thing.
No problem. Next time, I'm gonna call on you. Lady,
I'll be ready.
you want to close this out?
Certainly. Everyone, please put your black right fist in the air. Repeat after me. One God,
One God,
One God,
one aim,
one
one aim,
Aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.
destiny.
Africa,
Africa,
Africa.
for the Africans.
for
For
the
the
Africans,
Africans.
Those at home
those
Those at home
and those abroad.
and
those
those
abroad.
abroad.
Race first, brothers and sisters.
Race
Race
first.
Brothers and sisters.
Family.
Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Also, officers and those that have been attending since the beginning, exams will be, right after we finish. We'll have probably a week for either any type of makeup or any additional questions, and then on the following Saturday, once we complete, the 2 subsequent Saturdays will be reserved for exams. It'll be 6 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it'll be 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from lesson 1 to lesson 22.
All right. 6 hours.
In the past, people have asked, can we take a quiz or something like halfway through? But one thing to understand, every week that we come together is considered a quiz. The same questions that we go over each week is what will be in the exam. It'll just be less of those questions. The most important questions from each lesson is what makes up the exam. So, good luck to everyone.
All right.
All right, race first, family.
Race first.
Race
Race first.